Hi and welcome. My name is Linus Ohman, and I'm gonna run you through a presentation that is basically my take on what you need to do, or one good way to enable transformation within the organization, and kind of the pitfalls I've been exposed to trying to do digital transformation as a first and last step, so to speak. So let's run the intro, and I'll see you on the other side. Hi, welcome. I don't want us to be strangers, so I'm gonna bring you down here to the promo area. So I'm Linus Ohman, as I said earlier. I'm a thinker-doer. I call myself a strategic designer, and what I like to do is help leaders transform their business by gentle disruption, opposed to just disruption once the competition that are digitized from the get-go gets a hang of what you're doing. So that's enough about me. Let's jump right into basically what I see as the main cause for transformation, and that is the number one fact that change is the only constant in this day and age. And so with that in mind, there's kind of two sides of the coin. One side is that the speed of change is increasing, and on the other side of that coin, it's the fact that it won't be as slow as it is today. So that's my not so subtle way to say act as soon as possible. And from here on out, I hope you're ready to start getting to the good stuff. So I'm just gonna say get set, ready and go. And I'll zoom out a bit here because I think it's important to start with the right question. And I think the right question is, how do we become awesome? And with awesome, I mean, how do we become a corporation that keep and retain talent, attract the best talent in the industry? How do we exceed the expectations of our investors? How can we grow, both professionally and personally? And I think I have at least part of the solution. But before I go into that, I just want to say that coming from a technical standpoint with digital transformation, the realization for me at least has been that no matter how well the technology is and no matter how good the solutions are, if people are not ready to work with it, then it's not really gonna matter, because if people are not working with it internally, then it's not gonna empower the organization. So I realized that either you have to, start teaching the particular solution very much and do a drive with that, but then you're back to once that needs to be updated, that process or that digital solution is outdated and you update, you're going to have to start the whole process over again. And to some degree, that is also part of the solution. But how do we get to an organization that does that automatically? For me, that was kind of a scary thing to realize, because I needed to zoom out and kind of refocus what I do, not just telling people how they can use digital tools and solutions, but also how do they get to a place where people want to learn new tools and solutions all day long. So for me, that was a leap of faith, and I urge you to take that leap of faith with me here, because we're going to jump down to what I see as step one of the answer. And in my book, that is to believe and act in the same story. And this is a story that we as an organization can make ourselves. And some of us will be skeptic, and being a skeptic is most often a good thing when we hear something that sounds strange. So the question here sometimes become, well, who believes in stories that we make up ourselves? Thankfully, we all do that, because if you think about it, the things that are actually real in our lives are the things made out of stardust. Many of the things that we value the most, such as money and power and safety, it's all man-made things. It's stories and rules and basically man-made stories that we as a society has decided this is a really good thing to have. Let's keep believing in this so that we can get some sort of order and organize ourselves in a smart way. So yes, if we do it the right way, we can come up with stories that we all believe in. And then the question becomes, well, what's our story? What do we do as an organization that ignites us and makes us not only interested ourselves to be doing what we're doing, but also attracts new talent, and even more importantly, how does this attract new customers and make them stick with us? So before we can answer that, I think it's good to ask ourselves, can a small group of us answer this for the whole organization? And I would say that no, not a small group. I usually run this presentation for board members, and it can feel like, oh, we could really do this in a fast and fun way, and tell the rest what we came up with. The problem is we don't really have buy-in doing it that way. So what I propose is that we do it with the organization. So basically, yeah, all hands on deck. So I'm going to zoom out a bit here now, and there's a lot of things. I want to show you an overview of the how and the what. I'm going to zoom in now and take a look at how your organization might be looking today. And a traditional organization looks something similar to this. We have HR, we have support, might have a product team, an IT department, and often they're like tree branches. They're not necessarily, they're connected, but they're not necessarily aware of each other. Another way to describe that is silos, that everybody's working on their own to reach their own KPIs, and it works, but you don't really have a cross-functional super team in the organization. So what I propose, now looking forward to what do we want to achieve with the transformation that we're going to undertake, what I propose is that you want to aim for what I call for a lean learning machine, and it's marketing and innovation in the loop. And when I say marketing, I mean what we go to market with. So it's not the traditional sense of this is the marketing team, but basically you're either working with marketing your innovations or innovating your innovations, and the organization is gonna try to fit into that, and some roles will still be in support of marketing or innovation, but there's a different approach to how we work once we're supporting marketing and innovation versus being in our HR silo or whatever. So working much closer with the customers, working much closer with insight gathered from the marketing and the innovation loop. So it's basically being much more focused on customer satisfaction and also business growth. It's another way of being as an organization. And to get there, this is the money shot. How do we get an organization to want to change into this? And what I propose is that we come up with a purpose that is exciting enough for us to wake up with a smile in the morning and say, oh, I want to go to work and I'm going to learn new stuff. I'm going to fail fast and early so that I can learn by the mistakes and get up and like superpower my own customers. So to get there, we need to have a good purpose. Some people think it's money. I personally believe that what we need is something more inspiring. And that is, in my book, one of the best ways to do it is to go into the what section of what you should do in your transformation is find an almost impossibly inspiring and visionary purpose. Like if our organization could be anything, because we have a bit of money and we can transform ourselves into basically whatever we want, what would drive us to be super excited about what we're doing ourselves, and how could we attract customers to follow us on the journey to becoming something that can achieve this purpose. And there's 100 different ways to get into the what portion of this and how, what you're going to do first and so on. But this is just a generalized process. It's going to be much more than this. It's not going to be less, but it doesn't have to start with this. Depending on where you are as an organization, you might adjust things accordingly. But there's two things that are really important, and I think every transformation session ever since the beginning of transformation has had this. So I'm just going to go through it, and I'm going to map it to some things that I think is good exercises, and I'm going to tell you why. So internal drivers, it's basically what are you doing internally, and how does this affect your chances to improve and become a better organization. So on the plus side, there's principles. Is there some principles that we could change or that we want to try to adapt? On the other side, there's, and this is also on the minus side, are there some principles we should stop doing or following? And one of those might be that the current KPIs, do we have any that are standing in the way of our growth and change? And one fun exercise here is, and also a way to release people from a locked mindset, is to just map and remove toxic KPIs. And so I think this is a good point in the conversation to say that there's a few meta streams in the work that I suggest here. The one is to inspire people to see, okay, we could actually become another organization. We could, like the bird phoenix, rise from what we are and become something that is really, really inspiring. That inspires me, our customers, my coworkers, and in turn inspire us to become and do something that is really, really great. So that's on the one side, but also in this process where we want people to unlock their behaviors and be open to a new way of working. And that's why I propose that you do the purpose. If you start with an internal initiative or project where you start looking at what would really inspire us, people will open up. And when you open up, you're much more, well, once you're open, and then you can adapt to new ways of working. And so there's a few, the meta levels of this is, we do something very inspiring, it's very safe, because this is just a first draft of what we could become in the future. So it's safe, it doesn't affect our actual KPIs, nobody's gonna come throw new work processes on you in the morning after, there's nothing like that. It's an inspiring, safe work that we do, stretching our minds of what we could become. But in the same time, as we're working with this, we're going to start communicating this internally. We're going to start working cross-functionally to see what could be a great purpose. And also to exemplify this purpose, we're going to work with a vision concept that kind of materializes what we see our place in the future to be. So there's a few tracks here, but the very practical way is map your drivers. Is there something we should be adapting to? On the other side, in external trends, what's happening out in the world that we should be aware of? Is there something we should start acting on? Is there some things we should stop acting on, such as email internally, or that support is for complaints, stuff like that. Also, what I like to do personally is to see, is there something here that is too hot to touch for our competitors, and maybe is that our blue ocean? Is that where we can act? Because we are inspiring ourselves to reach greatness. And it might be climate change, it might be something like that. Once we've done the inspirational and actually seeing what's hindering us from being a great organization, then we just want to make sure that, is this big and fun and inspiring enough to bridge the old silos and be like a springboard for cross-functioning teams? And if we're actually on the mark with it, great. Then what I propose is that you make an immersive vision, where you can actually, anybody in the organization can go and consume this immersive vision. And on the other side of that, they'll have a much better understanding of what we want to be tomorrow. I just want to run off an aside here, because why I say that it should be immersive is because the more you have, the easier it is to get to an understanding of what someone is trying to communicate. And I would say this is just a model that I made because sometimes people think that they've communicate a lot while they haven't actually communicated basically anything. And so I drew this up so that people understand what is valuable within an organization. So thinking on a personal level is great stuff. I mean, most good work comes from people thinking, but also, thinking and then going to bed, and then their subconscious is dreaming connections in their brain. So thinking is a superpower. But in an organization, no matter if you're dreaming or daydreaming, if you're not communicating your insights or your opinions, then it's not going to be any value to the organization. So basically, when you go from thinking and to actually communicating, that's where I say that it starts to have some sort of impact in the organization. So talking is good, but it's very dry, and it's also very bound to who's in the room. Is everybody invited? Did everybody hear that? It's, even if you're in a video conference, it's not the perfect place, because there's always going to be one guy who doesn't get the connection right. So talking is good, it's better than nothing, but talking and writing down is a much better step. But then again, reading long texts, not what humans are designed for. It's better to have some notes, and then also some actual graphic sketching, something illustrative, because we are a visual species. What triggers us the best is visuals. So moving on from that is having even more high-res visualizations, maybe a story. Stories are very powerful, and getting into some sort of storytelling mode where you can see different stakeholders. And so the more immersive you make the vision, the better you can communicate it, and the more inspiring that in itself will be. So let's go back to how I see that you can do this as an organization. Before I go into, because we just discussed the what side, we're going to go to the how side soon. Up here, we're going to go to this. But before we do that, when it comes to change, I'd say that there's two types of people behavior. And I have categorized them here in value versus fear-driven. That might not be exactly what's driving them, but it's a way for us to polarize. Because why this is important is the value-driven, they are positive for change most oftenly, and the fear-driven is not as positive for change. But what is really important here, and what I think is missed most oftenly, is not that we have value-driven or fear-driven, but it's that the vast majority of a normal organization don't have an opinion yet. They're like, well, it could be nice, it could also be very bad, I don't know. What do you guys think? And this is what I call the big majority. It's around 80% of the whole organization is neutral. And so this is why it's so important to start on the right foot in your change, in your transformation. And we need to let the bright nights in, with bright nights for change, and I call the fear-driven dark naysayers of change. And we want to make sure that we have a majority of bright nights for change in the beginning, and then we can trickle in the rest of the organization. So sometimes it's very hard to find out who is a dark naysayer and who's not. So this is a filtration part of the work that is very super important, and usually you can find it out in a workshop or two if someone is against change, and then that might be because of KPIs and territorial behavior. It can be a lot of different reasons, but it's important to see them, understand them, and make sure that we plan who is in what accordingly. So, having said that, let's go into how I propose that you do this. And it can start out with normal workshops, physical normal workshops. You have some of the models, you map the internal drivers, you have some examples, you look at what are other people doing, what are we doing, how could we become a better organization that inspires us and actually enables us to fulfill a cool purpose. And the purpose will be a little bit later into that work, but you start in the how from a physical, classical way of working, and then gradually you go into working more in a digital fashion. So what we're doing is that we start very normal, like physical meetings, and then we gradually go into the way we actually propose that they will be working in the future. We start bringing the cross functionality in, we bring the digital in, we also bring in some of the principles like transparency, inviting participation, and invite for comments, and we start. First we collaborate, and then we co-create, and then we start iterating this, the purpose and the immersive vision simultaneously. So we gradually progress into a new way of working. We introduce some tools, and the tools in themselves are not necessarily very important. It's how we use them and why that is important. And it's because this is much easier to do in this part of it, and then we don't have to keep working with the tool. The tool in itself is just a tool. It's what drives us that is important, and so constantly relearning how to do things and doing it better and faster and smarter, that is a big part of the purpose of doing the transformation. And eventually we will arrive at the purpose that we can have a immersive vision immersive vision concept, and that is celebrated internally. And what we will come out of it is that we have picked out a few new goals. We might actually get to the point that we can have real-time insight engine for growth. We also have new KPIs that we have mapped up, because we see new things once we start shining light through the organization in this transformative way. So I just want to bring this into what I see needed. So this is usually what I propose in an organization. I'm not saying that you should do this here, but one problem with transformation is that it needs process and pressure. You know, you need to be there supporting it for a while until the new process is like. But before it starts rolling on its own, it's very easy for people and teams and even whole organizations just fall back on what feels safe, and that is most often the old way of doing things. So you need someone or some people to be there supporting it and encouraging it. And basically, lasting change requires full attention and a bag of tools. Me personally, I see that a lot of design thinking, system design, and understanding the network effect, understanding how networks actually work, influencing the influencers, and so on and so forth. That is very important. I still think that the last few years I've realized that the most important thing is having the right attitude, someone with the right attitude that has people skills, and after that, it's the digital pioneering, knowing all the tools, knowing how personalization works, and all the cool stuff with digitalization. It's not even primary; it's secondary. And then behavior design thinking, and the things that I brought up. So I think that is the most important thing, and you should get someone with ambition to make it their magnum opus, because it's hard work, it's very inspiring, but you should not go for someone who wants just normal 9 to 5. So putting that ambition in there is very important. So what we will end up with, or you will end up with doing this, is basically what I like to say, the tree of opportunity. You will have a lot of low-hanging fruit when you do this work that you can act on, and you can make a roadmap of that even before the transformation is done, because you now cross-worked with a lot of different functions, a lot of ideas that come out of that, and so you'll have a lot of low-hanging fruit, which is great, but it's also a way for you to start pressure testing the lean learning machine that has the marketing and innovation loops. If you become that organization that can work in this fashion, cross-functionally, with the constant focus on customer experience and the customer's achievements, you will have some of the most loyal customers in the world. And what really helps you guide you is this beam of purpose. And that's how I see that you can achieve digital transformation, not by teaching new digital tools or buying new digital tools or services, but actually learning to become a learning machine, always constantly learning organization. And that is how you can get to a future where you have the most loyal customers in the world. And I thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, I'm on this site. You can reach out to me. I'll answer you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. See you next time.